Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you can catch the new spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top so you can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so let's talk about Everett Ross becoming the Black Panther. Because you know, this guy was built for this, you know? Not really. Nah, he really wasn't. But even still, when this happened, they didn't pull him out of character. He reacted the same way you would expect Everett Ross to react, and he made the same decisions that you expect this character to make in a certain situation. So now, back in 1998 with the new volume of Black Panther, Christopher Priest created Everett Ross to be a character who would be the eyes and ears for the audience. And it was a great method of storytelling, because instead of having this mysterious character just look to you, the reader, and say, well, this is what I'm doing today, Everett Ross would play the role of someone from the US who is just diving into the world of Wakanda and the Black Panther. And with it being set up this way throughout the whole series, it allowed Priest to let Black Panther do what he does best and not have to stop in the middle of that to explain himself. And this really gave Priest the opportunity to dig and dive deeper into the Black Panther character and the history of Wakanda, because throughout this series, Everett Ross was telling the story. And a lot of the time, there was some crazy, gritty stories too. Because the Black Panther was brutal, he would carry a guy up a building, holding him by his hair. And I gotta say this too, with the Black Panther film coming up, I'm so glad that Martin Freeman has this role. Because his performances have the perfect combination of funny, but I still take this guy serious. And that was the tone of your narrator in your Christopher Priest Black Panther. And just to give you an example of the liberties he had with this character, like the first 12 issues of the series came out during your Marvel Knights era. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Marvel Knights, a lot of those issues got more darker and grittier because they were aimed more at teenagers versus small children. And because of that, more of the situations would be grounded more in reality. You could do a Punisher and Wolverine issue and really talk about how it went down. And you get the same liberties for Daredevil, Deadpool, Black Widow, mainly your street level characters. I mean, Hulk had his own series in there as well, but most of the issues deal with street level characters because they would deal with a number of instances that would get more grimier than your average superhero story. And in the early 2000s, they rolled it back into the regular publication of Marvel Comics. But back in the 90s, along with movies like Blade, it was comics like these that really gave the opportunity for us to see more of what you would find now on your Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Daredevil Netflix show. But what I like a lot about Ross's character is the relationship between him and Black Panther, because he has literally been to hell and back with this guy. And it's even come to a point at times where he was totally stressed out, because there were times where he was banished in Iceland. I think Dr. Voodoo did that. Attacked by zombies, chased by elephants, which we'll talk about in a minute, the elephants. But he gets completely stressed out and he punches Black Panther in the face. And I could just imagine that punch coming in slow motion and Black Panther is he really doing this? Is this really? Oh, it's real. But I bring up this moment in particular because it shows you how close Everett and T'Challa really are. And of course, after hitting T'Challa, he shakes him up a little bit and not trying to kill him, but more so open his eyes, because that punch really hurt his feelings more than anything else. Because one of the main lessons that Black Panther's father T'Chaka taught him was to stay 2 steps in front of your enemies and 3 steps ahead of your friends. But one of the biggest developments in Black Panther's character at the time is that he didn't do that with Everett Ross. But on the contrary, he trusted Everett Ross with everything. And it came to a point where he had to do this mainly because of Killmonger ruining the economy of Wakanda and T'Challa having to step down in order to fix it. But when he did this, he literally made Everett Ross ruler over his kingdom. And that's what hurt T'Challa the most, because he trusts no one. But he also understood where Ross's frustration was coming from with the recent death of his girlfriend Nikki Adams, who T'Challa also dated some time back. But he lets Ross know that she was one of the main reasons that he trusted Ross, because she only gets involved with people with the purest of character. But when Ross and Nikki were together, he didn't know that she had history with T'Challa. She also worked at the US State Department, which is where her and Ross met, but she was his superior, so she really didn't have to report anything to him anyway. How convenient, right? But oftentimes what Ross will report back to her or document his journeys in Wakanda or adventures with the Black Panther, within that dialogue is how we would get those crazy stories. One of which, like Black Panther mentioned earlier, is the whole situation where he handed over the mantle and the kingdom over to Everett Ross. And it's one of my favorite Christopher Priest moments because Everett Ross is completely out of his element. Because one, he knows -3 fighting styles. And when you Black Panther, you gonna run into some danger every now and then, you know what I'm saying? That is a given, it just comes with the territory. But one of his first encounters is with a bull elephant. And as acting Panther, you still gotta do what the actual Black Panther would have to do. And it really serves the purpose of keeping order in Wakanda, because there are many tribes who sit under this king. And with the Black Panther following certain tribal rituals, other tribes respect that, well, for the most part, but what it does is keep everything in order. But when Ross is like, I gotta fight a bull elephant, wait a minute, let me make a call real quick. And he's like, yeah, Wakabi, this is just a pre-bull elephant fighting phone call, just 1 second. And when he gets his phone call, he reaches out to his superior, Nikki Adams, and she immediately hangs up in his face. And so keep in mind, he's also telling this story to Nikki, like this entire story, at least from his side, with everything happening in Wakanda and him trying to call. But while Nikki is listening to the story, there's a bit more on her side that she's not really sharing, because Nikki Adams intentionally assigned Everett Ross to be liaison with T'Challa in Wakanda. And so with T'Challa's handling business over in the US, it puts him right across the desk from her. But in her mind, she doesn't really know the danger that Everett's in at the moment. And right now, she's kind of at this place where all these emotions are coming up to the surface because she's sitting across the table from her ex, who she didn't really want to break up with at the time, but she did it because she felt like she needed to because of the pressure and the physical attacks of them being an interracial couple. And she even admits that she was in the wrong. But T'Challa calls back Everett mainly because, you know, his heightened senses and he can hear through the phone and all that before she hung up. But he's like, let me call back this dude before he die out here. But let me tell y'all real quick, this gold phone that T'Challa calls him on was like the baller move of the 20th century. Because this was like 1998, 1999, around there. And not only because it was all gold with no bezel, but you could FaceTime people and their phone didn't need a front-facing camera. Like, Apple's still trying to figure that out, and I'm not gonna front. The moment I actually see that happen in the keynote, I'm blocking everybody who get that phone, because that ain't right. Nah. Can't rock with you, buddy. But either way, when T'Challa makes his call, he tells Ross to put Wakabi on the phone. And he tells Wakabi to look after him, like, I don't want him dying out there. And mainly because he knows Ross is not capable of doing this on his own. And at this point, he's already made provision for him to be protected while he's out there. But this call was more of a, I hear a lot of crazy stuff going on, I just want to reassure you to keep him safe. And at the end of the day, as crazy as it sounds, T'Challa still knew what he was doing. And the fact that he could trust Ross in this situation really gave him the time to step away and do what he needed to do. And so now with Ross, like I mentioned before, he's not just stepping into the role of Black Panther and just jumping around doing flips and all of that. It don't work like that. And even if he could do a flip, the suit's way too baggy, so like it wouldn't work out. So we definitely ain't seen none of that going on here. But like I mentioned earlier, Christopher Priest really stays true to the character of Everett Ross, because even though he's like a sidekick of Black Panther more or less, or at least that's kind of how they play with the idea between one another, with Black Panther being like your Batman in the Marvel Universe and Everett Ross being like his Robin, this is the way that Ross began to view T'Challa once he started finding out all these things about Wakanda. And Ross really wasn't like anything close to your actual Robin, who all of which are very capable in their own respect, but this is the way that Ross viewed and imagined their dynamic, even though Black Panther was really doing all the work. But it was fun to see, and mainly because us as the reader, we had our experiences before from Fantastic Four, Jungle Action, which originally started with Kazar, but then the second volume picked up with Black Panther, and from there Black Panther went on to have his own self-titled volume of comics. But this really gave the reader a sense of awe, reading from Everett's point of view, diving deeper into the history of Black Panther, but also having fun with it at the same time. But on the flip side, we will also see the reality of it, because very often Black Panther would take Everett everywhere he would go, with the exception to the times that he had to go save his butt, whether it was from the Hulk or be it bolted down to the floor of a burning building. But in any of these situations, Ross would openly admit that he's not the hero. And sure, he would fantasize about being the hero at times, but when it actually came down to it, he wasn't about that life. And sure, he had his fantasies of saving the day and being that sidekick, but when it came down to his report that would either go to his superior, Nikki, or to one of his peers, he would straight tell the truth. Like, they started letting off shots, I was screaming like a little girl, I had rats crawling all over me while this was happening. Like, he'll tell the truth, he'll keep it 100. And even admit while this was happening, T'Challa kept his cool the whole time. So make no mistake, there's no mixing up of the story with this guy. He'd have his times where he dreams of being the hero, but then after that, when it's time to talk about the truth of what happened, he would tell the truth. And so jumping back to the issue where he was stepping in for Black Panther, initially he felt like he could do this, do the hunting of the huge elephant, the bull elephant, the word escaped me for a minute. But he stopped and he was like, man, I honestly, I can't do this. But right when he said this, the bull elephant, which they were holding down for him, shakes itself free and charges right after him. And when this happens, he takes off and he's trying to call Nikki again, but he really can't even get the words out. But not too long after he's being chased, a shadowy figure runs past him in the opposite direction towards the bull elephant. And initially when this happens, he thinks it's T'Challa. Because mind you, even at the point to where he's telling this story, he doesn't know where T'Challa's at. He didn't know that he even went to meet Nikki. And he knew he was handling some business, of course, but he didn't know where exactly he was at any given moment. But when this shadowy figure tackles the elephant, dude tackled an elephant, bruh. Just let that sink in for a little bit. But when this happened, he immediately recognized Monika Lynn, who he thought was dead, and it's pretty obvious not too long after that she's here with Killmonger. But that'll do it for this one, guys. I'll save some of the Killmonger talk for another video so we can really get into his character and a lot of his motives. But hopefully with this one you guys learned a bit more about Everett K. Ross and how his character was really depicted early on in the comics. And the film's take does seem to be more different, but I'm glad to see that he is in the film. But not just that, but he's also going to be similar to his character in the comics, teaching us about Wakanda, because we've seen through the trailer and a lot of the different images that are out that it looks like he actually goes to Wakanda. And this is huge because a lot of the things we talk about here on this channel about the history of Wakanda, the techno-organic jungle, Black Panther versus Deadpool, these came from issues of comics that were narrated by Everett K. Ross. And initially when he arrived there, he didn't know much of anything about the secrets of Wakanda, but as he learned, we learned with him. But like I said, that's it for this one, guys. If you learned anything new, smash that like button for your boy, and if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe so you can catch the spills every week. And do hit me up in the comments so I know you guys' thoughts about it and we can squad up for the first hour. And after that, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Alright, later.